All right, we were recording. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see folks on the call today for our very first session for 2022-2023 academic year for the Society of Agricultural Communication Scholars. Today, we're going to have discussion related to successes and challenges of new agricultural communication faculty members. And I will be leading a group discussion with some of our newer faculty members, and then Leslie Edgar will be talking with some of our more vintage senior faculty as well, and have a time for kind of an open discussion for everybody here, because this is a topic that we think is going to be important for all of us, whether you're a senior faculty member or just starting in a new program. We have so many new programs that are starting around the country, and many of them being serviced and being done and supported by faculty who may have started their program there within the last year or two. So hopefully some of the comments today will be of help to those of us who've been around a while to be able to help some of our junior faculty in our own programs, as well as around the country, as well as to for those who are maybe starting a program to hear what some of the other challenges and successes have been at other programs as well. So I'll go ahead and kick off the discussion here. The first panel is with Garrett, Shannon, Kenna, and Lacey. So I'm going to just kind of let them introduce themselves, and I'll just go around, start with Garrett. Garrett, so if you want to introduce yourself to everybody.
For sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Garrett Steed. I am an assistant professor of food, ag, and natural resource communication at the University of Minnesota. I'm beginning my 5th year here at Minnesota and my 3rd year in my current tenure track position.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. Let's see, Kenna.
Awesome. So I'm Kenna Kessler. I started at Utah State back in January of 2020 as a teaching faculty member, and I've recently undergone a little bit of a career change. So I've switched to a different position in the department, but now I adjunct some of the classes in the agricultural communication program. So that's what I do right now.
Great. Thank you very much. Lacey.
Hi, everyone. I am Lacey Roberts Hill. Typically just go by Roberts. I got married recently, so that's new. I'm currently an assistant professor in communications at New Mexico State University, where we are creating a new program. So I've been here. This is going to be the start of my 2nd year. Prior to that, I spent 1 year at Mississippi State University in an instructor position, teaching ag leadership and international agriculture. So kind of jumped through different levels and kind of teaching different content. But so I guess I'm in my 3rd year full on faculty role.
Great, thank you. And we will have Shannon Norris, also there at New Mexico State, will be joining us too. She told me that she is running from her class that just ended. And so as soon as she can find a computer, probably in her office somewhere, that she will join us for the discussion too. So we may catch her up with the question if we missed the question. And then what I would like to do at the very end of today, after we've all had a chance to talk, is to make sure we introduce each other here as well. And so we'll go around the big room here on Zoom and let everyone have a chance to see what we're all up to. So to kind of begin with, as with our mentees, because we do have a mentor-mentee program in SACS. We had a recent survey that was sent out, and it was because of that survey that we actually got some people to say that they would like to volunteer to serve as the panelists for today. And so the questions that you'll hear answered today are very similar to those that were done on the survey back in April-ish. And so I'll just start off with what has been the biggest success you have had as a mentee, as a new junior faculty since becoming a faculty member? What would you call your biggest success? Those on the panel, and I'll just open it up for any of you to chime in there.
I'll go first. I guess I'm the one who's the newest, the longest on the panel. So for me, my biggest success, I think I would say, is this fall we are launching our undergraduate minor. When I came here to the University of Minnesota, we were a single faculty program, and a lot of our courses were the courses that we offered were students had to learn a little bit of everything in the few courses that we were able to offer, and we farmed out a lot of courses to our not so friendly counterparts in the journalism school here at Minnesota. And so by the addition of myself and the instructor that we hired, we were able to develop 7 new courses for our curriculum. So our curriculum heavily changed once we got there. And then we went through, after figuring that out and moving courses around to fit our majors, we worked this past year in the development of our minor, and students can begin enrolling in that this fall. And so that's probably, and I took the lead of that. I'm now the major coordinator for our program here at Minnesota. And with that also comes being the minor coordinator. And so that was my first, like, this is my thing that I contributed to the department since being here. So that's probably my biggest one.
Okay, great.
I can go next. That's awesome, Garrett. I don't really want to follow up with that, but so I think I have 2. Like I mentioned, I was teaching faculty, and so the really cliche answer is to say, my biggest success is the success of my students, but it's always nice to see them achieve their dreams, get the job that they want, or get that email that says, thank you so much for your class. It really helped me. That's always a treat. Professionally on my end, I think the biggest thing that I really enjoyed doing and I felt like was very valuable was participating in writing the textbook, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit later in today's meeting. That was really fun because I remember as an undergraduate being able to read that textbook and learning from it. And it was a really cool moment in my career to be at a point with my knowledge to be able to contribute back to the field and help out. And so that was really cool. Plus I got to rub shoulders with a lot of the best agricultural communication faculty in the nation. So that was a treat as well. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Lacey?
Yeah, so I think that my successes were definitely kind of in 2 parallel things like Kenna and Garrett talked about. So we here at New Mexico State, we have succeeded in getting our classes approved and they're about to be on the books. We have all of our course codes. So we were able to navigate some of that confusing, red tape part of trying to get all of that put together. But our students are excited about our program and we're recruiting more and more, which I think is like a really big success for us, is just trying to kind of hit the ground running. So we've had success in that. We're also establishing a minor. We're also working on a strategic communications master's degree that's joint between our department and our journalism department. So all of that is in the works, which takes a lot of time and effort and brain power. But that's more on the professional side, I think, is what I would say is a big success. We've got our courses lined out and we know what we're doing and we can kind of go forward with that. And then personally, I think one of the biggest successes is now that I'm in, I guess, technically year 3 of being a faculty member, I actually feel like I'm starting to know what the heck I'm doing, which is not all the time. Like, I'll be very clear, not all the time, but I'm more confident in the actions and the things that I do take, just having time to be one in a university system for a bit. But I would say that's kind of a cool personal side, is I've noticed that as I'm starting to begin projects, really reach out to people, I'm confident in that action to do that thing. So
let me ask this for everybody, not just on the panel. So we've heard from a few folks already. How many of you are within your first 3 years? This is for hypothetical. I'm way past 3 years. First 3 years in your position at any university. Anybody within 3 years or so? Okay, so about half of the folks on the call today are in that category, which is great. So again, you may hear some of the things you're dealing with or facing, as well as the successes that they have been going through as well. So let's flip the question here a little bit. So what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced since becoming a faculty member? Lacey, your hand is up already, so I'll go ahead and call on you since I kind of tricked you into raising your hand for a different question there. So
I think this thing is smart because I didn't remember hitting the button to raise my hand, but cool, I'll talk.
Okay, good.
I think it's starting to recognize now. I'd say the biggest challenge has been trying to navigate what needs to be done and in what order to get our program where it needs to be. Because there's just, again, so many like red tape, and it takes so much time between us submitting our classes, getting them approved, and then like going to the next step. And we are very thankful that we have a department head that's really championing that. can't talk. But I would say that that's probably been a challenge because it's been the most stress, honestly. If we're thinking about stress points in the job, that's been probably one of the biggest ones. And the other, I would say the challenge is just trying to continue to do all of this while writing grants and getting research out. So finding that balance between what all is expected. And I would say, honestly, probably there's some things that have fallen to the side right now that shouldn't, but they just have. And so being okay with that and not sitting in that space of, oh, I'm the worst faculty member ever because I don't have so many grant process and so many research things happening at the same time when we've got other priorities. But that's been a challenge, just kind of overcoming some of those I call them mind games that we play with ourselves.
I can talk about two like challenges, one focusing on teaching and one focusing on research that I found within my first 5 years here at Minnesota. When I got here, we had almost 100 undergraduate students in our AgCom and marketing major, and about 60% of those were doing the major as a double major. A lot of them were animal science and AgCom and marketing. We had some students who were doing like food science in our major as well. However, when we got here and we added 7 new classes, that AgCom and marketing major as a double option no longer fit in as well with those other majors. And so since we got here, we've actually seen our numbers decline in students favoring a legacy major like animal science. Our major just started in 2014, I believe, was when we first were able to offer a major separate from ag ed. And so that's been a challenge that we've found is finding, because we didn't have a minor, then suddenly those students just stopped taking our courses and just majored in animal science. And so we're hoping that our courses will become a little bit more full with the addition of our minor. And then of course, those animal science students finding out, oh, hey, AgCom is actually what I want to do for a career, and then changing their major. But that's certainly something that we didn't anticipate being such a challenge, the fact that our major previously fit so well as a double major. And then secondly was research. You know, I did my PhD at Texas Tech, and so we have a very large faculty there, and we had a lot of grad students there. And so there were research opportunities everywhere all the time to be involved. And then coming here to a much smaller program that doesn't have a master's or a PhD program, suddenly the way that I had approached doing research and having research ideas, that shifted suddenly. And so I didn't have, 2 other PhD students who wanted to work on a project with me. There's only one other tenured, faculty member in our AgCom and marketing program. And so we can't do all of the things. And of course, COVID added to the challenge with getting to know faculty across the college and collaborating in that way. And so I found that as a challenge very early on. I've been very recently within this calendar year been successful at securing grant funds for a very large grant with some people outside of my department, but it definitely took longer than I anticipated it would, both being in a small department and also the challenges with not seeing everyone because of COVID.
Awesome. I also have 2. So just to be really honest with everyone, I really struggled with imposter syndrome at the beginning. And I know that's a thing that a lot of people struggle with, but I feel like academia is kind of on this higher platform, right? Very professional. You rub shoulders with some really cool people. And I was hired right out of graduate school with my alma mater. And so I went from being the student to being the teacher very, very quickly. And so suddenly where I was hearing all these names of these really cool people, now I'm going to these meetings with these really cool people. And I'm like, whoa, I'm such a fake, and they're going to find that out. Right. And so it took a while, but once I got my feet under me and had a little bit more experience, then you start to get a little bit more comfortable in your role. And that really helped a lot. The other thing is really just growing pains of any new position, right? I had to learn suddenly how to manage the other side of Canvas. I had to learn, what's an appropriate workload for students. Just little things where it's like, the student needs this accommodation. How do I, handle that? And there was just a lot to learn very, very quickly. And I tend to be a perfectionist, like I'm sure many of you are. And so I like things to be perfect right from the beginning, even when I'm in a growth arena. And so with experience, that went away because I became more comfortable with my own abilities, but I remember it being a little anxiety inducing at the beginning.
Great. And we've had Shannon join us too. So Shannon, if you could just kind of introduce yourself, where you are, your year there, and then the question we have right now is challenge, your biggest challenge as a new faculty member. Thank you very much, Kenna, for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Shannon Norris. Great to see everybody. I apologize for stepping in a little bit late. We just wrapped up a lab. I'm an assistant professor at New Mexico State. This is the start of my 3rd year. And I think that we're in a really cool part in our program. It also brings some unique challenges that sometimes are hard to ask the questions to, where we're in the process of building a program. And so some of the things that are my day-to-day were not some of the things that I would consider my formal training. And so in my head, like to the imposter syndrome statement, I feel like I feel that on a day-to-day where a lot of the specific questions as it relates to making sure our coursework learning objectives are in the right system, making sure that we have the right forms in place and the sequence of those were not necessarily something that I feel like I was formally trained in my doctoral program. And by nature of what we did, it wasn't, a loss of the program. It's just a very unique role to kind of step into. And so I feel like for me in my head, I've had to offer a little bit of grace on like the growth pattern. And Ken, I think you had a really cool way of describing that in the growth arena, with making sure that the way that we talk to ourselves with the pace of which we're running is really vital, because, we're the only one that's present in that moment, even though we might be surrounded with incredible mentors. And so I think balancing what I thought the job to look like and what the job currently actually does look like is a little different. And so I've had to try to figure out, like, if it's a different note pattern, if it's a different balance of time, to try to figure out, well, this is new program development effort, and this is faculty development effort. And sometimes those don't talk well to each other. And so I've personally had to find a balance there where we can still move the needle on progress toward a tenure track role, and with all the research and with all of the, the grant submissions and publications, while also making sure that our teaching load is great, but the paperwork supports it so that the future program stay in place.
Great. Thank you. And the other question I was going to have to follow up with was, how have you worked to address these challenges? And in your answers, most all of you have answered that question as well about what you've done. So Shannon, just so you know that right before you came on, I asked the people who are on the call here, how many were within their first 3 years of working at a university, and about half did. So, and so we all have to keep in mind that if that is you, which again, more than half of you there on the call, you've dealt with 2 years of teaching and dealing with things remotely as well as a result of COVID-19 as well. So last question I have before we turn it over to Leslie and the more senior faculty is this about mentors. Again, we've had a mentor-mentee program within the Society of Agricultural Communication Scholars for going on 3 years now. But the question is, how has having a mentor helped you? And it could be a mentor there at your university, or the mentor-mentee program here, or any type of mentoring that you've received to help you in those first 3 years or so of your program. And anybody would like to join in?
I'll go
I get to
first.
call you. Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
You win.
Yes.
You win extra points for going first each time. Yeah.
So I think about my mentorship in 3 different ways. I think about the mentorship that I achieved, that I had during my PhD, and that really helped me to hit the ground running here when I got to Minnesota and the development of the courses. One of the courses I brought to Minnesota is a course that I wrote for Erica during my comprehensive exams. And so that mentorship helped get me here and get me started. But the University of Minnesota is so incredibly different than Texas Tech and even Mississippi State, where I did my master's and undergrad. The size of our program, the size of the university, where it's located, where our resources come from, who we call on. We have connections with Cargill and Land O'Lakes and General Mills, and those are very big names that I've never had here in town to impress, and the way we have to impress them, so they just keep giving us money and things like that. That was certainly something I wasn't prepared for. And so my mentorship here at Minnesota in Rebecca Swinson has been invaluable. We think of our 3-person group as we all kind of have different experiences that are that definitely support each other. I'm the only person in our 3-person group who comes from an ag background and actually has come up through the ranks in ag communications, whereas Rebecca came through the traditional media and comm route, and she has a lot of agency experience. And then Troy McKay, who's our instructor, he spent 15 years in Hollywood, and so he has a lot of film and audio and photography experience that none of us do, and so we all contribute in different ways, and I'm always the ag context for things. But I don't think I could navigate how things are done nearly as well if I hadn't had Rebecca Swinson. I go to her for all of my questions that I have. She served as the committee chair for my first promotion and tenure committee. We do promotion and tenure a good bit different here. We get reviewed every year instead of at 3-year and then at PNT. And so again, I wasn't prepared for that, but Rebecca had just gone through the process. And so she wanted us here because the program was growing and she wanted to be able to offer better things. And so it wasn't like here, Rebecca, you have to be Garrett's mentor, but rather we support each other in beneficial ways that are good for our program and good for our professional growth. And then I actually just started a mentor-mentee relationship with Leslie here on the call that I'm really excited about, because she's in a very different place doing very different things, but she has a lot of the points on her career trajectory that were things that I am looking for or want later on. She's had some, international experience, and I am incorporating some international aspects to our program, and the roles that she's had are what I think are goals for myself. And so while it's a very new mentor-mentee relationship, I'm excited to see how, as I continue through my years and as I work toward tenure, how I can use Leslie's experience and expertise outside of the relationships that I've developed at Texas Tech here at Minnesota as well.
Great, thank you, Garrett. Who's next?
I can hop in here. I think just to add to Garrett's approach there, for me, it's been helpful to kind of think through like how different mentorship plays in different parts of our job and in parts of our lives, and seeking out individuals that can fulfill and speak into that part of who we are. And so with my current position, I've got a teaching and research appointment, but just by nature of our department, service is also a super valid and like treasured part of our campus, but it's not a part that I'm paid for. And I have a problem with passion projects and being able to balance those things. And I know that that's a limitation that I have, but I also it's important to me. And so it's been helpful to try to balance the mentorship from those that I consider sound and incredible teachers, to see how well did they set up their courses, what did that look like with students. And then on the research side, how do we continue to build in either scholarship of teaching and learning or progress toward our research agenda if it's slightly different than the courses that we teach? And then on the service side, like how do we still give into the part that we love about that aspect while still balancing and making sure that we're not overcommitting on things that we're actually not in our job descriptions. And so it's been helpful to have people that are in those parts. And in my mind, it's like a bucket of information and a wealth of knowledge for the people. But then kind of an unpopular opinion, I also think that we've got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And so having a mentor in life, I think is valuable too, because if there's ever a point where we're just pouring ourselves so much into the job that we miss the person, I think that we can't be as effective as we want. And so making sure that we have some people that can ground us to make our priorities and the things that we really want out of this life, the forefront, and then our job supports to work in that spot. And I had a mentor, I guess, that gave me permission to feel like it was okay to do that, and that we could still talk about it in a professional arena. And the cool thing is that they all blend together. And so that's been my approach, and I'm very thankful for the people that we get to surround ourselves with.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. Kenna, you want to go next?
Sure. So kind of going off what both Shannon and Garrett said, it's really good just to surround yourself with people who you can go to and learn from and grow with. I have been blessed to have several people and different situations that have really helped me in my path. So first off, we're a really small, tight-knit program. And it's been awesome. I've been able to work with the program leader now for, almost a decade, I think, in a bunch of different settings. And so it's been great to have someone who has more experience than me and be able to learn from her and see, what she's done and be able to kind of model and pattern my own career after that, as well as it's been great to be part of professional organizations such as this one, where you get to meet a lot of different people who fill a variety of different roles and just learn what's out there and what's available and see what other people are doing. I think, even in this one, I remember talking to Ricky in a conversation, and he mentioned he started teaching in his 20s, and it was kind of a light bulb moment for me. I'm like, wait, other people do this too. Like, you had to start somewhere to get where you're at now, right? And so it's great to learn from people who've gone through the same process as you, even if you're just a few years behind them. And then, my promotion committee has been awesome through my university. I have a lot of agricultural education faculty on mine, and as a teaching only appointment, it was good to be able to go somewhere to ask my teaching questions. And then I did participate in the mentor-mentee program, and I was paired with Heather, and she's a teaching only faculty as well. So it was good to have someone to go to ask kind of the sillier questions, I guess, where you're like, is this normal? And she's like, yeah, my students do that all the time. And it's a good relief, right? You're like, okay, it's not just my program. It's not just me. So just surrounding myself with phenomenal people has been great.
Great. Thank you very much, Kenna. Lacey, you got the last word of context here before we head over to the senior faculty.
Sure, I'll round us out. I mean, everything that the other panelists have said it's so true. Honestly, if I'm being very transparent, mentorship is my favorite thing. Like, I feel like it sounds bad, but I kind of collect mentors because everybody has some really cool insight that can provide some really cool stuff to like build me up to a better person. And I am all about that. Like, I just read self-help books, right? So mentors are my favorite thing. And I will say that one of the best things about my mentors is, as Shannon had said, like I have mentors for different things as well. But I trust all of them to be very upfront and honest. And I think that I built a really cool relationship with a lot of my mentors. One of them, Rutherford, is on here. And she at one point was like telling me, are you crazy? Because I was like, oh, I want to do this and this and this. And I trust her enough to say, okay, whoa, you can do maybe 2 of those things, but she does it out of a place that is respectful and is a way to make me be successful. Like, I can focus on these things, do them well, and then go back to some of the other stuff. And I think that's part of Dr. Rutherford was on my doctoral committee. And so she knew from the get-go how I just want to have my hand in all of the puddings. So it's cool. Like, I've got her that has seen me from kind of my starting stage to I've got mentors through this program. So I have Dwayne, who does the same thing, but in his own way. And we talk about different parts of what is our job, but also life. And so I think that they are the reason why I can be so confident. As I've said, like, some of the biggest achievements I've had is just gaining confidence and being able to build a relationship and trust them in that has helped develop that confidence on this end. And so the other part of that is I just know what kind of person I am, and having a mentor in any capacity, one that will say, hey, this is probably not a good idea, or you're doing a really good job. Like, sometimes I need to hear that. Not every day tell me I'm doing great, but it's good to have somebody that says, you're doing fine, just relax, and I can do my job better because I don't have this constant worry or fear that I'm doing something wrong. So having a mentor that can just step in and say, hey, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing. It's so valuable to the stage that we're at, and where we're developing into faculty members that are reaching for tenure. So the mentorship program is my favorite thing and will continue to be my favorite thing probably until I retire. So
All right. Well, thank you all very much for your comments here. I'm going to turn over to Leslie to kind of keep us on track here as well. She'll introduce the next group of panelists, and we'll have a chance for everybody to kind of talk about any concerns or questions or things that you have on your mind. Leslie?
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. And thanks to our our mentees. Always good to hear from you all. And I see so many of my mentors around the screen, as well as some students, and it's just yeah, so such a great opportunity to join you all. So Leslie Edgar, I serve as the Associate Dean of Research in our College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences, as well as the Experiment Station Director here at New Mexico State University. So thanks for the opportunity. And today, both Chris and Erica have agreed to join me. So I'll have them introduce themselves. And I'm just going to go ahead and pitch them a 2-for-1 question while they introduce themselves. So we're going to, in being mindful of time, I'm going to ask them to tell us from their perspective, as they've worked with mentees, what have they seen as their mentees' biggest successes and their biggest challenges? And so I'll let either of them go first.
We're both writing it down, I can tell.
I'll repeat it if you need me to.
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. So I'm Chris Boone. I'm the director of Ohio State ATI. We're part of the university here, but I have a separate campus. So, so that includes, you know, responsibility for all of the academic programs as well as for all the student life programs as well. So, so anyway, that's just kind of in a nutshell what I do. The things that I think I've seen as far as challenges are things that the previous panelists discussed. Balance is a tough one. And I was sharing with Whitney the other day that part of it's because of people like me, because all of a sudden I see you and you're fresh meat. And so I'm like, I can get them involved. They're not going to be burned out like some of my faculty who are a little too long in the tooth. But on the other hand, you know, I also want my faculty to use me as a sounding board so that when, you know, they get a call from someone and it's a service activity that they can kind of say, hey, can I use you as an excuse? And I'm like, absolutely, you know, that works real well for me. So, so I think that balance is important, and reaching out and using your resources and your people as resources, I think is really good. And I think the challenge that some of the successes are when you well, you not only you take pride in these students that you see. I mean, I you know, later on in your life, you're going to have an academic progeny and you're just going to be so excited about them. They're just going to be so great. But it's really nice to see that success, but then also to see yourself pull together a coherent research program. Or if you're doing scholarship of engagement or whatever, that you've got this thing that you've built, and you should, you know, take pride in that and identify, you know, what you've done. One thing a couple of things I would just say as a quick shout outs. I appreciate that some of you are saying you're investing in yourself, and I think that's really important. But you can also ask others to invest in you. And then the other last little point is get rid of the toxic people. So people who tell you something and you go, wait a minute, that does not feel authentic to me. And they're labeling you as something, get them, don't work with them. So if you can.
Instagram reel, toxic person, walk the other way. I'm Erica Earlbeck. I am a vintage professor of agricultural communications at Texas Tech. And so the challenges that some of my mentees have worked through, one of them more recently was navigating a new dean or a new chair. And that's something that we'll have to do at some point. So, you know, yeah, one of them called me about around about this time last year, and just like, this is what's going on. How do you think I should deal with this situation? And so, yeah, we talked through some different scenarios and strategies. Another thing that I see is the comparison syndrome. That, you know, well, this person is working 80 hours a week and don't do that to yourself, because we can compare ourselves until we run ourselves ragged. So you do you, you know what feels right for you and you know what works well for you, and don't make yourself feel like you're not enough because you're not working as much as another person or not getting as many grants as another person, or whatever that case may be, because you never know what kind of sacrifices that other person is making, and that might not be the healthy sacrifice that you want to make. But big successes that I've seen, promotion, tenure, those things, big grants, journal articles, those are all fun things to see when those happen for people that I work with.
Thank you both. Okay, last question. So what do you believe you being a mentor has, how has that helped your mentees? Or what advice do you have for us who serve as mentors about how we could be better at serving our mentees?
You go first this time, Erica.
Okay. Advice that I need to take better. I need to be better about contacting my mentees. I'm not good about that. But on the other hand, like I just kind of assume that when a mentee needs some assistance, he or she will contact me. And so I'm not good about approaching them. So that is something that as a mentor, I think I need to be better about contacting people to say, just to send an email, say, hey, how you doing? You know, those are good things. And I think a good piece of advice is just to listen more than you talk, and just be there to listen. And then when somebody asks for your advice, then give it. That's my sage wisdom.
So I would, I think that's all great. So ditto. I would say also enjoy it. It's fun. And so, you know, just enjoying that relationship and seeing that grow and things like that. And it is incredibly rewarding to see them be successful or to assist in a time of difficulty. I think that's very rewarding on its own. It's a lot like advising students, as a matter of fact. And as we know, when we advise students, some of the key things we do is have a good list of questions handy.
So Ricky, that is the viewpoint of the vintage faculty. That is the first time I've ever been called vintage. So I don't know if my colleagues feel that's a benefit or not, but I think it's time for question and answers. And so we have a lot of great expertise. And so if it's okay, Ricky, I'll just open it up for any questions folks may have or anything that they want to add to the conversation.
I've never gotten to do this. This isn't a question, it's more of a comment. 10 years in academia, finally got to do this. For those of you that are new, there's an article called The 7-Year Postdoc. I'll drop it in the chat box. But I like to read it every year or two. It's been a really good reminder if you haven't gotten to read it before.
I have a question for anybody really, I guess, for some of our vintage group or just people who have experience in this role here. I feel like whenever we approach mentorship, one of the things that I think of is I'm approaching it from my own frame of reference, right? For what I think that I need help with. And sometimes I'm not asking the right questions for what I actually need a mentor in. And so for those who have years of experience here, are there areas that are pain points or things that you would suggest of saying like, hey, you should be seeking a mentor in this part of your life because there's going to be a time that you're going to need that advice. You just might not know it yet.
We could pitch it to some of our other vintage faculty as well we haven't heard from. So you know who you are.
I'm pretty vintage. I'm in. All right. So I was thinking about this as I was listening to some of you talk. And if I had it to do over again in terms of seeking a mentor, I think I would be maybe more categorical. So I would maybe try to find mentor in grant writing, mentor in teaching, a mentor in research and publishing. And I had great mentors, don't get me wrong. I mean, if you guys know the faculty I worked with here, worked with some pretty big powerhouses, but I didn't categorize, and sometimes I didn't go seek help when I needed more direction, because that wasn't necessarily any of their particular strengths. So my advice is categorize and choose mentors that can help you in those areas rather than just having general mentors.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that one of the things we have to keep in mind collectively is that we're all, and this is not a bad thing, we all have a level of pride. And it came out in some of the conversations, some of the responses here about, Ken mentioned about imposter syndrome, that you're supposed to know it all, but you know what? All of us who've been here a while didn't know it all to begin with. So if you find that you need some help, you're the best person to realize that you need to reach out. So please let any of us know on this call and others there at your universities, because you're your best first point of reference about when you're struggling or when you're successful, to let people know, hey, I just got this grant, because most people are not going to know until later on. So wipe away the pride. It's okay. It's okay to not know everything, because none of us, and we still don't know everything.
I would add, sometimes your mentors are going to be wrong. I had one tell me not to submit a grant, and I got the grant and got to put it back into my mentor's face that, hey, you were wrong, I was right this time. But it was kind of fun because it changed the relationship, in that my ideas felt more valued, in that sometimes I am going to go take that risk for myself. And sometimes you're going to fail at it, and that's totally okay. But sometimes you might actually know more than we do about what the next big thing is. And so don't be afraid to push those boundaries a little bit, and not necessarily do the same thing that the rest of us have done all along, because what we've done for 10, 15, however many years isn't what our discipline needs 5 years from now. We need what you guys are thinking about. So it's okay to push a little bit with us too.
Good question. What else? Other questions or comments? Especially for some of you who are fairly new to this process.
So this is maybe less of a question about mentorship, but a question looking for mentorship. I'm on week 3 as an assistant professor, and I'm really trying to get involved with different things within the college, get involved with different things on campus, partially because I'm building a new program, and so I just want students to know that I'm here and be able to say, hey, this is what AgCom is, because most don't know that. But I would love some advice, some mentorship on how do you know when to say no to opportunities, and kind of maintain that work-life balance a little bit.
So I at least that's kind of one of the things I was trying to get at, and I probably didn't articulate very well, but use your resources around you. So particularly use your whoever your chair is, or someone like that. Because one of the things that, generally speaking, I will say that we all want you to be successful, because we've already invested a lot. Searches are very expensive. If you were talking billable time around those tables when we're doing search committee stuff, that is pricey. And so it's in our best interest, it's in your best interest, it's in the student's best interest that you are successful. And so surely that person will be invested in your success and can tell you, hey, that's a great one to do, or no, don't do that, it's a time suck, or it's not very high profile, or it doesn't really align with what you're trying to do. So I think use them. One other thing that's really helpful, because while you have to be your champion throughout your promotion and tenure process, you also want whoever is your leader of your tenure initiating unit also to be a champion for you. And so if they know what you're doing, that's real helpful.
I always tell my new faculty, you don't have to say yes and you don't have to say no. You can say, let me think about it and get back to you. And that gives you a little bit of a chance to think in the big picture, instead of feeling like you have to give an answer right when somebody asks you about something. You've always got at least 24 to 48 hours before they really need you to say yes or no. Use it.
And I'll add on to that, something that I wish I would have done day one is come up with my mission plan, my defining value, my value statement, whatever, like this is what I do. I didn't have that, so I said yes to everything. I researched everything. So when you look at my early CV, I'm on every project. There was nothing like, I didn't have anything that defined me. And I wish now I would have had that. So now I have the things that I say yes to and the things that just don't really fit what I do. And so I would encourage you to take an afternoon and sit somewhere where it's quiet and you're not going to have interruptions and really figure out those things that you do now. And that doesn't mean that that's your career. That's what works for you. That's what makes you happy and gets you out of bed right now. And it can always evolve. Mine very much has, but know what you're going to say yes to and what you're going to say no to, because it fits your research agenda, your service agenda, your teaching agenda right now.
Yeah, Alyssa, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's what was one of the most helpful pieces of advice that I received was, what do you want to do? And if you don't have a clear picture of that, then you're just going to say, "Ooh, that sounds cool." And I still struggle with that. I'm like, "Oh, that sounds really neat," but based on time, doesn't work out for me right now, but keep me in mind for later, right? You can start to prioritize those opportunities as they come. So that was like one of the most valuable pieces, and really like write it out on a whiteboard. Here's my first year. Here's what I want to focus on. Here's what I want to be known for. Here's where I need to be in an area of expertise, and map all of that out. And then it becomes your research program. So when people say, "Hey, I've got a cool student, but they want to study this," they can start sending people to you because you have established yourself as such. The other thing, just as pragmatic, because there's so many of us that are still in that first 3 years. One of the tips or helpful, I guess, piece of advice I got was actually like, how do you ask for mentors? Because it's kind of awkward. You're like, "You're really cool. Can we hang out sometime?" Like, it's so weird, right? And sometimes that works, right? Depending on personality. Like, you want to come out and hang out with me? Yeah. But for others, I found that even the like cold emailing is really, really intimidating. And so I find that I start it with, "Hi, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. I'm starting my career. I really respect your work and I respect it for XYZ. Can we have some time to talk about how you got to that position?" And then if you have a time to talk on Zoom, or if you go meet them in person, you can, one, see if you mesh really well. Like, "Man, I could do this monthly." Like, we could really jam and come up with some cool ideas, or just have a cool conversation and say, "Wow, this is really neat. Thanks for your insight." And then you can move on and say, well, that person, if we're doing as Dr. Miller says, which is great, if we're categorizing, you say, "Well, that was really cool, but they don't really fit in where I'm looking for that mentor." You can do that. So if you're emailing, I would start with that, saying, "I really respect your work. Here's what I really appreciate. Here's what I do." And you can find a time that works well for both of you to sit and talk about it. And it gives you kind of a checklist of things you can talk about too, instead of just saying, "You're neat. Can we hang out?" Because I think you have to work up and build a relationship to get to that. So just some helpful plans.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, suggestions, concerns? I think I speak for all the senior faculty around this call, and I appreciate, Kenna, your comments earlier when you said, yeah, he started teaching in his 20s. I look back, I started at 29. I've been in this for 27 years, so I've almost doubled now. So from when I started to where I'm at right now, so yeah, I am really vintage. The clothes that I used to wear 29 years ago are back in style again. So I know I'm a vintage, So, but I say this for all the faculty here. We're here to help. And we may not necessarily be your assigned mentor, but almost all of us began in programs where we were the ones who were starting programs or being part of a program that was just fairly new. A lot of you, which I applaud wholeheartedly, the work that you're putting into starting programs. I looked at the survey results for the mentees, and almost all of them within their first 3 or 4 years, they're starting brand new programs, whether it's some type of academic program or a minor program. So I applaud you. There are a lot of hurdles, but a lot of us have gone through those at our own universities, and we're here to help. So just kind of take advantage of the networking that we have here as well. So what I would like to do before I talk about the textbook real quick is there are several people who didn't get a chance to talk. I'm just going to kind of call your first name, and if you could just say where you're from and where you are, whether number of years or your position, because others may not have know who you are. So start with well, Kisa, you had something to say, but you didn't say who you are other than Keith Settle. So Kisa, introduce yourself to everybody.
Keith Settle, assistant professor of ag communications at Oklahoma State University. I've been here 5 years and 29 days. I can only do that in August. But I was at Mississippi State prior to this and started the ag comm program there. So I don't feel mid-career, but I'm starting to think that maybe I am mid-career at this point. And just a quick update on the Oklahoma State side. She was with us at the very beginning, but had to hop off for a meeting. But Audrey King started with us on August 1st. So we are at 5 full-time tenure track faculty in our ag comm program and 2 instructors now. So pretty cool.
Great. Thank you very much. Kelsey.
Kelsey Hall. I'm an associate professor of agricultural communication. I've been at Utah State since 2011. Really, my focus is on local food marketing. I'm an extension specialist in that. And then you may see my name come across as the executive advisor for the National ACT. I have 1 more year, and then I turn the reins of that organization over to Heather Miller in the summer of 2023.
Great, thank you. I'm going to call 2 people and we'll go back to back, so we'll be a little bit faster. So Jacqueline and Whitney, followed by Whitney.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Iyenje. I am officially 6 weeks on the job as an assistant professor of agricultural communications and journalism at Kansas State University. So go Wildcats. Excited to hear from all of you and learn a lot, and look forward to staying connected and seeing you all in February at NACS.
That's right. Whitney.
Hi, it's good to see some familiar faces and new faces. My name is Whitney Stone. I'm on day 4 at Oregon State. So I'm sure I'll have questions. I just don't have them all now. And I am an assistant professor of agricultural sciences and natural resource communications. So excited to see everyone.
Great, thanks. Fally, and then I'm going to go back to Tracy and then Jeff. You've spoken, but you really haven't introduced yourself. So Fally.
Hello, my name is Fally Masambuka Kanchewa. I'm in now my 2nd year being an assistant professor at Iowa State University, and I'm glad to be here. I learned a lot last semester, and I'm looking forward to learning more this time around.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Tracy Rutherford. I'm department head at Virginia Tech in Agricultural Leadership and Community Education. I started my career under Chris Boone at K-State and was at Texas A&M for 18 years before I came here in 2019. And we are finally going to get an AgCom program at Virginia Tech. So we will have a position open this year.
All right, great. And Jeff, I think that's everybody. After Jeff.
Hey guys, Jeff Miller. I'm a professor at the University of Arkansas. I'm starting my 22nd year here, and did a few years at Oklahoma State before that as an instructor. Some of you know me as the current executive editor for the Journal of Applied Communications, and we swapped emails about your articles and those kinds of things. But really great conversation today, and it's good to see all of you.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing with us today. Before we run out of time, I do want to mention this brand new, within like the last couple of weeks, brand new. This is the Agricultural and Natural Resources Communications e-textbook. And so for those who've been around for a while, there was a textbook, a printed textbook that myself and Tracy Arani wrote and published back in 2012. It was a really good publication. However, for those of you who ever want to write a book, it's all about how many editions or copies are sold. It wasn't a big seller, okay? We're a fairly small group here. So when we were told that the publishing company was not going to exercise its right to do another edition because sales were okay, but not tremendous, And we heard from so many of you around the call here, as well as others, that you still are using it. We thought now's the time to update it. And I think someone said, we don't know everything. And so this was a huge effort. Over 20 faculty from around the country contributed in some way to this e-publication. So it is anrcommunications.org.com will also work. And many of you on this call have had a big hand in producing this. So it's chapters similar to the ones that were in the previous book, as well as brand new chapter and a lot of brand new content from video to audio and other things in between. So if you click on each one of these, you'll be taken to a chapter with interaction built in. And then at the end of each chapter, which is kind of scroll through here, there's also objectives, quizzes or key terms. There's also application questions. There's actually questions that people can answer. And if it's right, I was incorrect. Oh, so sorry. I can take it again, all the way through to who was the author and contributors for each of these particular chapters. At the very end of the textbook, there are also other resources, from video tutorials to one of the web projects that was done a few years ago that Texas Tech University was the lead on. So we tried to make this as comprehensive as possible for everyone to be able to use. So it's available for everyone to use in your classes. It is free. We are asking that if your students are wanting to use it, again, it's a totally free publication, but we're asking for a contribution of $10 to kind of keep it maintained. And that goes into an account that we're going to use to be able to update the software and things in the future. And if we, for whatever reason, get a really big contributor, if you know a sponsor at the corporate level who would like to add to this, then any funds that are what I would consider to be in excess of what we need to continue to maintain this, we as a group here will be able to use those funds, possibly to bring in a speaker at one of our conferences where ag and natural resource communicators would be held, and that type of thing. So, but it is free. And if you want to go to anrcommunications.org, you're welcome to do so, to test it out, see it out. But we're very, very proud of what was able to be done there. And I see that Alyssa has another comment there that Tennessee State University started the first AgCom program at an 1890, which is great. Wonderful. Any other comments, questions? Again, I want to thank everybody who was on the call who helped out with the textbook. I've heard from so many folks that they really have enjoyed what they have seen. I do have one shout out to someone who's not on the call here, Allie Morrison in the Pi Center. Everything that you see laid out there, she did. So she did a lion's share of the layout work for that e-publication. So again, next month we'll be at the same time. The next in September. Well, the presentation was going to be on ways to support international graduate students. So Valley and Shuyong Ku will be the presenters next time around on September the 26th, 3 o'clock Eastern time, and hope to see everybody and others on the next month's call. So thank you all very much for your time and see you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.